Hello and welcome to another video. So we're looking at an unlimited Portalcraft deck. This deck was a deck that Mint Candy had showed me. I asked for the deck list because it looked super interesting and he supplied. I only made one small adjustment as I do only have a single Proto Bahamut, so I added an extra Israfil as they serve very similar purposes with very similar stat lines which work out really nicely together. So that's a very easy one to opt out of. For the people who are going to notice, first off, this deck is very Puppet orientated for the early game, which makes sense. Puppet has a very strong early game presence with Hamlin, Crux, Nicholas, all those cards doing extremely well. So pretty much everything in the lower end except for Lyria is a Puppet engine, and that's not a big surprise. So from turn 2 through to turn 6, you are looking at Puppetcraft. As soon as you eclipse turn 6 and get into the turn 7 plus range, outside of Sylvia, which is more considered early game in this case, you are looking at a full neutral top end, excluding Vengeful Puppeteer, which is an amazing Storm Reach, which works out really nicely. So you're going to have lots of big drops, lots of big damage. Unfortunately, I don't get to mess around a lot with those in this video. Most of this is going to be the Puppet engine, as most people will concede before you can get to the big late game drops, which is a little disappointing because this deck is an absolute amazing one to play. And hopefully in the future, if I do get to play more of this deck, I can show you more of this top end. But for anyone who has played the neutral top end for any kind of unlimited deck or post-unlimited before they were split, you know the Suckwheel, Lucifer, Israfil combos were absolutely insane. Zeus is a great reach card, and Proto Bahamut just fills this out nicely. And of course that goes amazingly with Azure Maiden, as this card's Enhance 8 gives you a lot of availability when it comes to getting Suckwheel and other cards just to really push you through that limit, which is great. So overall, good Puppet engine, good neutral top end, really made this deck awesome. It's a great fun to play, and we're going to check it out right now. So this first game is going to end very quickly as the opponent does concede extremely early, but I wanted to show off how good these starting hands can be. And honestly, I didn't have a bad starting hand with this deck so far. I hadn't managed to get a loss in the last five or so games that I played with this deck, but most people were conceding relatively early due to really good hands. So Hamlin and Crux is an amazing start. You always want to be able to keep those. I did decide to keep the Lyria as well. Probably should have considered throwing that away, but I did decide to keep it. So being able to drop Hamlin on 2 for Crux is just great, especially if you are going first. It is a huge lead to be on. Of course, we do get to see the Lux Solar Lancer, which isn't too much of an issue. We do end up with the Suckwheel. So this is a great way to kick things off. Of course, our opponent goes for the Pure-Hearted Singer, not really any threat. Clears the Hamlin, again, still not an issue for us. Our turn 4 is pretty set with a Nicholas, and that's the kind of curve you want. 2, 3, 4 drops all in a row. Of course, Sylvia is better with Crux, which you will see in future games, but just this opener will absolutely win you games, straight up. So it's not a huge surprise that those hands will instantly win you games. Well, not so much instantly, but very quickly win you games. The Sylvia opener in Unlimited is still just that good. And I really enjoy playing a Portal list in Unlimited, as it is a much more enjoyable format to play, and I feel like the top end just really curves out nicer than in rotation. So this hand is basically just as good. A Sylvia, Crux, and Nicholas is pretty much ideal. It's the only reason I wouldn't have got rid of anything else, as you really can't go wrong, especially getting double Crux, meaning you have a turn 3 through 5 play, no problem at all. We do end up with the Vengeful Puppeteer, which is a good way for us to get our final reach. It's usually what I like to use it for. It's just that extra little bit of damage that we may need. Our opponent is going for Ancient Elf, which is going to go to 5 health, which means our Sylvia is going to clear this, although it is at the cost of using Crux. And while its name obviously isn't fully a Crux, it's just much easier to shorten 2 Crux than trying to go with something else. So everything else in this hand is pretty okay. We are going to be able to go for Nicholas for our turn 4 play with the Evo, which I always enjoy doing. Best part is we actually have 2 Nicholas now. So a turn 6 Nicholas is actually a play I don't mind making as well. It always seems to do quite well. It's just this deck does curve quite well. Of course, I haven't bricked with this deck yet, but I could definitely see it happening. If you end up with all high-end neutral cards, you could be in for some real trouble. You definitely want to mulligan as many high-end neutral cards as you can away and try and get them drawn off the deck later in the game, as you really don't want to be holding any high-drop cards. So this actually works out really well, especially since we got Ardent Sniper. I was going to use the Crux for turn 5, but using it this way gives us a double ping every turn and is much better in the Forest matchup. I can also use the Evo to set up for turn 6 and get a Rush card, which will guarantee that 2 damage. So we really can't go too wrong there. Plus our opponent now has to deal with a 3-2 and a 4-4 this turn, which it doesn't look like they can deal with both. So it's really going to be working to our advantage. It's the kind of hands that I like. I like to see hands like this. So we get a chance to play another Nicholas, along with throwing the rush out to kill off the 5-3. I do also decide that the Evo is the way to go. I don't want to take too much damage, even if it is just one, because roaches are very dangerous. And when we're this close to winning, we really don't want to be messing around too much. So if our opponent had a big roach play, which I couldn't see a huge roach play coming, but if they had any kind of good roach play, we could have been in some trouble. So this one is a little more tricky because we've got that 3-5 that we want to deal with. Luckily, substitution draw is pretty perfect for this, especially since we can set up another Nicholas, which just gives us a nice body. It means they really need to clear all of this to really have an advantage on us. So a couple of Angelic Snipes, a Goblin Mage, all of those are pretty reasonable. They are going to waste a Roach. That's good for us, seeing the Roach get wasted there. Fortunately, we don't have any turn 8 storm damage here. This is where something like Sarkwill would have won us the game. But we are going to be able to limit what they can do. So it is reasonably close. I mean, I don't want to take a big Roach turn because then I will be in some severe trouble. Ooh, and this is not looking good. 14. I think even if they double Roach here, they're going to still be one short. And that's what it looks like. They are going to be at 13 damage, meaning they do have to attack the board to survive. And that's not what you want to be doing with your Roaches. And since we can Vengeful Puppeteer next turn, we do win. While it was extremely close, we did manage to edge them out, which is good. If we had have had our neutral support cards a little earlier, we would have actually won a lot earlier, but you really can't go wrong with this Puppet in Unlimited. And because the first game, of course, was extremely short, we've got a third game to go. It was another Forest deck. Forest is extremely popular in Unlimited, so it's not a surprise that some of the best games that showed off the deck in its best light were against Forest. I haven't had too much variations in decks because I did kill, I think, 3 Forest players, that 1 Sword player, and I think I killed 1 other player, but I'm blanking on what deck it was in particular. It might have been Rune, which isn't a bad matchup either. So we start off with a basically God hand. This is what you want. Hamlin, Crux, Nicholas, Sylvia, all pretty much perfect, setting you up all the way from turn 2 through 5. Zero issues at all. Loco could actually fill out turn 6 quite well, and Heartless can clear out turn 7, which means you've pretty much set up your whole game at this point. Of course, Ancient Elf, not a problem again, basically the same play the last Forest player made, and that doesn't work out when you've got Sylvia to go down. You will notice having Sylvia definitely wins you the game more often than not. If you do Brick, it's going to be a lot harder to win. Not impossible, just a little bit harder. That's why a lot of people don't like Crux and Sylvia, because they think they're too powerful. I could see them being changed, but I'm not sure where, as I think the only real thing you could do is change Crux's cost to maybe 4, and then try and adjust stats and stuff to fit it, because you really don't want a 4-drop 3-2 even with its effects, and then having Enhance 5 with a 4-drop would be weird. But we start off with a very nice hand, we get the damage that we want, we're not really having to worry too much, and we've got a really solid turn 5 with lots of options. So they are going to have to waste this 5-6 to get rid of the 6-4, which really doesn't leave them many options. And we've still got our Gunsmith there to go down. To have a name be Kukuru just is weird. I mean, Silent X is weird, personally, but it's fine. I really like the Enhanced 5 on this. Especially with this ping damage, it's great. So I run out of kind of things to do on 6, so just throwing down the Nicholas and then using the Hamlin on the Loco, as I only have 1 Evo point left, so there's no point using it on the gold there, as it wouldn't have been a very good advantage to have. So another Will of the Forest. That's actually fine, it buys us some more time, it sets up a nice ward. We get Lucifer, which is going to be great on turn 8 with an Evo. So Lloyd is the play, as it does buy us the turn that we want. Because once we play Lucifer, they will be within striking range for Vengeful Puppeteer. And Lucifer is a pretty much instant removal. If they do not remove it, they would be in some trouble. So they went for this Sylveon. They can wipe this board, but they do end up giving up. So a little disappointing. I really wanted to play the Lucifer and see where that went, but I think we would have held the game just fine. So I really enjoyed playing this deck, and after I was shown it by Mint Candy, I definitely knew I had to make a video on it, as it was just a really fun deck to work on. So big shout out to him. It's a great guy, run some events and different things around the Shadowverse community, so it's awesome fun. I don't think it was his deck originally, but he is the one who showed it to me, so like I said, big shout out. Hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. You'll find the deck list in the description below, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.